Hello and welcome. I'm your host Fana Shea and you're watching AWANI Global. Right, today we are at the sideline of the 38th Asia Pacific Roundtable here at Hilton, Kuala Lumpur. And we are joined by our esteemed guest, Dr. Arnaud, Head of Delegation in Myanmar International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, and Dr. Fuadi Pitsuwan, President of Surin Pitsuwan Foundation of Thailand, to talk about the Myanmar crisis, to see where humanitarian response lie and what's the ongoing crisis and where it's heading right now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Right, okay. So let's start with setting the scene here. So 4 years after the coup, Myanmar remains in turmoil. So how would you describe the humanitarian and security landscape today, and where is it most acute right now? Let's start with you, Arnaud.
Well, I think the landscape is very fragmented, both politically and in terms of humanitarian response. But the needs are in most of the countries. No? The earthquake last March added a layer of complexity, but the crisis was already, in terms of economic hardship and conflict, affected populations all across the country, like in Sagaing, in Rakhine, in Shan states, for instance, but in many others as well.
Right, and what are some of the biggest barriers to reaching some of this vulnerable population right now if we're looking at it at a humanitarian landscape?
Well, the challenge is to reach all people in need with a moving landscape in terms of security and access and the multiplicity of players. That's what makes it complex.
Right. So you mentioned the multiplicity of players there. So I guess that goes back to you, Dr. Fuadi, if you can share with us a little bit. You know, there's growing talks of Myanmar being balkanized right now with multiple power centers and, you know, collapsed central authority. So how does this affect political and humanitarian outcomes in the region?
I think we have been discussing this possibility of Myanmar being balkanized for a while now, to the point where I think we should assume that it is already
yeah.
De facto wise. I think Myanmar are operating in a form of what I would call a sub-state, right? I mean, different arms group control different land, and there have been talks about them delivering some of the public health services, services that a normal state would function. And I think we in Southeast Asia, particularly Thailand, I look at this issue from the Thai borders out to operate on what is actually happening, right? De facto wise, they are already separating, and then our ability to recognize that and to pursue a strategy that fit with that reality, I think will be very important. And from the Thai side, right now, if our foreign ministry, our civilian leadership still pick up the phone, and the other side is still the leadership of the SAC, and I don't know if that is the direction that we should pursue until we could pick up the phone and see ourselves. I'm talking as a Thai now. And then the other side can be the leadership of KNU, the other side can be the leadership of the KNPP, other ethnic resistant organization. I think that is when I think I would see some more hope in how Thailand would solve this issue, or would approach this issue. I'm not saying that there's no engagement at all now. I'm talking about publicly speaking. I think what Prime Minister Anwar did to meet with the NUGs and held meetings with the EROs here in Kuala Lumpur, I think helped signal to Thailand that there are other ways, there are alternative ways to engage different stakeholders in Myanmar in a public way. The Japanese did. Last year, the Japanese met with the leadership of the KNU, KNPP, and NUG in Tokyo. I think some signaling like that. And if Thailand see this and see that it can also pursue multi-level diplomacy, I think that will help the situation.
Right. I mean, it's all about, you know, finding the best solution, either, you know, as a mediator, or even as, you know, engaging with the coup itself, or engaging with the people there itself. And I think I want to get back to that a bit later on in our discussion on what ASEAN as well as Thailand's role is in mediation and in finding somewhat a peace solution to this. But Arnaud, let's get back to you on patterns or shifts in how communities are responding or adapting to this really protracted and also prolonged crisis. Do you see, organizations there or civil society networks playing a bigger role in humanitarian response or in pushing for an outcome that is desirable?
Well, you already have like a strong local networks to respond to kind of first layer of humanitarian needs, and this is was striking when the earthquake arrived. Like local communities, local organizations, monasteries, everything was done there. But then the capacity can be overwhelmed, and that's why they need to be strengthened. And an organization like myself, or we also work a lot with the Myanmar Red Cross Society, are trying to bring a long-lasting response to this initial response and rely on local players, local responders that have people and capacity, and with a bit of support they can do most of the response. What's concerning is that it's large scale and in many areas, and access is not always easy.
Right. I think it's very interesting to have both of you here, because we have on one side sort of on the ground picture of what's going on, in reality with the people in terms of the humanitarian side of it. But on Thailand's side, a key mediator sort of with regards to achieving long-lasting peace and achieving a solution in ensuring that dialogue goes on. And at the forefront, Thailand is one of those countries in ASEAN. So I think it's very interesting now that I'm looking at the both of you and asking these questions. But okay, so from both of you guys' perspective when it comes to this crisis, right? What do you think is the most misunderstood about the Myanmar crisis by the international community? And what kind of framing or assumptions need to change? We can start with Fuadi.
I think Thailand, first I said already that Thailand has to recognize that the other side has many stakeholders, and if it can recognize the leadership of the ethnic armed group, ethnic resistant organization, the NUG, on the same level as the SAC, that will be a shift in how Thailand approach it. Another, which is linked to what Arnaud deals with on the daily basis, is that the Thai state, the Thai national mindset see humanitarian effort as a one-way direction. Right. We are helping Myanmar. Until Thailand can shift its mindset, its national thinking on this issue that humanitarian means you help others, but that is also helping you in the end, right? Can we engage in humanitarian on a much more symbiotic term? I think that would allow Thailand to be more active, do this on a larger scale. If it sees itself as just helping, then it won't, right? But if it sees itself as helping itself by sending vaccines across the border, by granting special licenses in certain zones so that Myanmar doctors can operate along the borders, if Thailand can engage can step in, US retrench on some of these funding, can Thailand do more along the borders? Can Thailand marry humanitarian effort with economic interest? There has been discussion that humanitarian effort can also benefit Thailand economically. For example, in Thailand, there are 90,000 refugees already who have been there along the borders for the past 30, 40 years already. Can some special economic zone be built so that we can dissolve some of these camps and use some of this human capital to engage in some economic productivities along the border? That will solve the humanitarian crisis, help make it better, but also benefit Thailand as well. Until Thailand can get into that mindset that is just not us helping, I don't think Thailand will be willing to do more. And I think that relies on a lot of international pressure, engagement, explanation that, hey, you can be enlightened about your self-interest, help others so that even in the end, it would help you.
Right. I mean, I think it's all about having a comprehensive, well thought out plan when it comes to dealing with crisis that is affecting you or the spillover is affecting you, but not directly. I mean, we Malaysia also hosts Rohingya communities. We are one of the countries that hosts the most Rohingya communities, and we also fall short of having a proper plan, if I must say, of ensuring that it's a symbiotic relationship, like you said just now. But Arnaud, let's go to you. What do you think are some of the assumptions that needs to change when it comes to framing of this crisis?
Well, I think what you mentioned and the fact that we are together with Fuadi today is a good illustration that there is a need for a political solution for, for the country. And as the ICRC humanitarian player, we observe that. We're not involved into mediating or in any way, but we do engage with all sides during the conflict phase to make sure that international humanitarian law is promoted and respected. And we also know that while a political situation is sought, the humanitarian needs are there. And they need urgent response in terms of access to healthcare, access to clean water, access to decent housing, prisoners to be visited as we do. And that's the combination of what needs to be done urgently on a daily basis and then a long-lasting solution.
Right, so sort of handling more of the immediate fires or immediate problems that may be missed or sidelined, that usually only those who work on the ground like you do can see, and the higher ups might not, be looking into it as much, from what I'm getting, right?
Well, maybe they're looking into it, but it's true that it's
from a different lens, I feel.
Exactly.
It's from a mediation lens as opposed to like a humanitarian lens.
Yeah, exactly. And the need to respond on a daily basis is really what
more
is
immediate.
striking.
Right. So, okay, so looking at, not to say solution, but a way forward, I guess. How do you think ASEAN should rethink its approach to the Myanmar crisis in 2025 and beyond? Because this is an issue that from time and time again we have talked, and we are nowhere near the end, I feel. So has the 5-point consensus failed? And if so, what's next? Should ASEAN explore new formats like humanitarian corridors or engagement with resistant groups? Is there any other way that we can shape the way ASEAN responds to this crisis for now? Heidi, maybe we can start with you.
It's really important to understand that the 5-point consensus is a license to intervene. It's an achievement, right? To arrive at that consensus at all. The problem with 5-point consensus is that there's no political will after that to actually carry it through. And the expectation that a country will be able to solve this conflict, another country, in 1 year, right? Malaysia as chair, is not correct. So what we ought to do, and this has been discussed a lot, for example, the idea of a troika, so that there can be a continuity. This is a group that those country who is chair at the moment, chair before and chair in the future, should come together and become more active, particularly on Myanmar issue. The idea that the special envoy should be permanent, should not be yearly rotated, should be at least 3 to 5 years in position. This is to help implement the 5-point consensus. And maybe there should be an implementation plan, a roadmap of what each year ASEAN should do. But that roadmap cannot happen without a vision of how you want to see Myanmar crisis being solved. But my point is that there is effort, and I hope there will be more effort to actually realize some of this 5-point consensus. It has failed, but it has failed. It didn't have to fail, right? And then I think it's a good document, and it unprecedented in a lot of ways, that because it is a license to intervene. We talk a lot about non-interference, but this document actually allows ASEAN to intervene. And I hope ASEAN will do more on this issue. And there has been lesson learned. ASEAN had been active during the Cambodian crisis in 1978. In 1997, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim he launched a term, constructive intervention. Right? There was a lot of pushback then, but spirit like that I think should be talked about again. We had Aceh in 2005. We had Aceh monitoring mission. ASEAN worked together with the EU on East Timor 1999. Some countries in ASEAN Coalition of the Willing worked together with Australia to monitor ceasefire and peace there. In 2008, Cyclone Nargis, ASEAN was very active. We sent in not only officials, but also the civil society. This is another venue that I hope Malaysia as share could explore as well. Mercy Malaysia was in Myanmar during the cyclone relief post 2008. It is still there, still active. Is there a willingness from the Malaysian government to do more to pursue a community-based civil society route? There was also Thai NGO, Thai civil society back then being involved in the relief effort in Myanmar. If the political leadership, particularly Thailand, is afraid of engaging all the stakeholders publicly in order to be able to keep the communication open with the SAC, can they explore another level of engagement through civil society, supporting Thai civil society, ASEAN civil society to do more on humanitarian terms inside Myanmar and along the borders? I think that is a venue to capitalize on.
Right. I mean, you're advocating for more longevity in some of the plans that are already in place in some places, but are sometimes a bit one-off and sometimes, due to lack of political will, for example, stop short. I think I completely agree. There's a lot more that we can do as neighboring countries and as well as a bloc. But Arnaud, what do you think in terms of the plan forward for ASEAN? Maybe we could look into humanitarian corridors or engaging more with resistant groups. Is that something that you being on the ground itself, do you see that happening, or do you see from the bottom up, is there any approach that we can look into?
Yeah, I think from the bottom up and without being involved in the political aspects, we see that one of the points one of the 5 points is humanitarian support, humanitarian aid, and this is really the support we need for the international humanitarian law to be promoted and respected, for the access to population to be granted, and for the actual, and we work with the AHA Center or the ASEAN body for humanitarian response. We are present locally, but there again, to meet the needs in terms of access to healthcare or clean water or housing in diverse parts of the country. That's the connections we're interested in and the support we might need. And we know also that in political discussions or in solutions to solve conflict, often humanitarian topics can come first, and people can agree on the transfer of detainees. The ICRC has been involved in some cases, or in just like medicine reaching hospital. That is a first step that can help building other elements towards the goals of the ASEAN in that case.
Right. I mean, I think that's certainly the hope, that we can invest more and look more into solutions that are long-lasting and solutions that are more permanent, I guess, in the region itself. Right. There is one sort of a touchy topic that we touched on during the session just now that I would like to bring up. There's been a lot of criticism that ASEAN has been too shaky or divided in its response to Myanmar. If you bring in the opposing views of the Myanmar junta election, for example, some have called, betrayal of the people's democratic aspirations, for example. Now, given this call for unity and rejection of the coup, do you think ASEAN is truly positioned to be at the forefront of resolving this crisis, or has it lost credibility among the people of Myanmar itself? And I also like Dr. Fuadi to answer this as well, because you mentioned this new development in terms of the tensions between Thai and Cambodia that could possibly affect the dynamic in ASEAN when it comes to responding to Myanmar under Malaysian chairmanship, since both Mr. Thaksin and Hun Sen are both advisors to Anwar. So a lot to unpack. Maybe you can start first.
I think with the precarity and instability of the Thai government, particularly Thaksin role in Thailand, position in Thailand, it is quite dangerous for the Malaysian government, Anwar, Prime Minister Anwar, to be relying on Thaksin as a proxy, as a conduit. So I think now is a time to step back and really rethink Malaysian approach to this crisis. I think working more, and I know they have been working more on an institutionalized basis with the Thai MFA, with the mill-to-mill relations, I think will be the way to go. Rely less on individual leadership, personal connection, although it is important, but the fact that the person is not secure in terms of his political position within Thailand. I would encourage Malaysia to rethink in terms of this part of the strategy. In terms of ASEAN, it hurts me a lot when I see ASEAN flag being burned in Myanmar. I do think ASEAN is suffering from a reputational crisis, respectability crisis, and relevance crisis on this Myanmar issue. Judging from young people's perspective, peoples of Myanmar's perspective, it's a test case of whether ASEAN could deliver on the hopes and dreams of the people, at least show to the Burmese people, Myanmar people, that ASEAN can help and is the hope, right? And we did that during the cyclone Nargis. I think we have to replicate some of that political will, some of that initiative, ability to affect change, ability to help to prioritize people again.
Right. Arnaud, do you have any input on this?
Well, I think on the last part of what Fuadi just mentioned, yes, prioritize people. And we engage with the ASEAN state, with all states or non-state players that are involved into a crisis like Myanmar, to promote international humanitarian law and to keep the people at the center, concentrating on their need now. And we already mentioned access to healthcare or water or many others, but that can go in parallel to the political solution that is sought after.
Right. We have about a minute or so for one last question, and let's keep this brief. What would be a sustainable humanitarian response look like in 2025 and beyond for Myanmar?
To me,
yeah.
For me, I mentioned this briefly already, is the ability to convince Thailand that humanitarian assistance will help Thailand.
Right.
Particularly in economic terms, right? There was this discussion during the election, floated ideas of what we would call humanitarian economic corridor, that helping those along the borders helps Thai economy too, right? Not just because of not only human capital, but also the businesses that overflow into Thailand. Can there be a corridor? Can there be a industrial estate being set up along the borders so that we can harness all these human capitals along the border, which also by default will help with the humanitarian crisis along the borders as well. When economic development issue get better, when the economy develops, people have money, they can take care of themselves better in terms of healthcare and all these. I think it's that ability. In Thailand, there was a young MP who spoke in the parliament and said that we have to help Myanmar people because of humanitarian issue, because of democracy, because of human rights. She was attacked by the people of Thailand, right? But then the same narrative was said by another MP who are colleagues, right? Because of that backlash, another MP came out to justify helping Myanmar immigrants, our Myanmar friend, on economic terms, on self-interest terms. Hey, we help.
And people throw roses at him.
Then the criticism is much less when you justify it in terms of self-interest, national interest term that, hey, you help Myanmar people because they are contributing to our economy. If their health is better, the diseases won't be spread to Thai people. If you frame it in that term, I think it will be more receptive. And
I mean, it's not just Thailand. It's going to be extended to Malaysia as well, who's hosting refugees, and can be extended to other countries as well who are looking at possible solution or possible way to move the needle. So I think, you know, this approach is very beneficial. The symbiotic relationship that you mentioned is very beneficial, or a way forward that we can try to move this along a little bit. Arnaud, brief, super brief.
Yeah, of course. Well, cessation of hostilities is always the best answer to humanitarian needs.
Right.
But in the meantime, I think access to all people, all communities
right.
affected in a way or another by the conflict, by the earthquake, to humanitarian help through local players or the ICRC or other organizations, that's what is key for Myanmar today.
Yeah, and also engagement, more engagement, I think, with bodies such as ICRC and other civil societies. I think that is necessary as well moving forward. Just my 2 cents. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps our discussion. This is a protracted conflict, and I feel, I do hope that I'm not here again to talk about this next year. That, you know, or talk about the same thing next year, so we can have somewhat a new development, more positive development on this. But thank you again, both of you, for being here and for sharing your insights. That's all for me. I'm Fana Sheikh. Thank you for watching.